मन बिरतियां कागर करके let's focus and sing the Mangal in Maharaj Ji's charan first. Satnam Shri Vaheguru Sahib Ji Farida Kale Mende Kapade Kala Menda Ves Gunhi Parya Main Firan लोक कहें दरवेश तू दरियाओ दाना बीना मैं मछली कैसे अंत लहा जह जह देखा तह तह तू है तुझते निकसी फूट मरा हमरी गणत ना गणिया काई अपना बिरद पछाण हाथ दे राखे कर अपने सदा सदा रंग मान साचा साहिब सद मेहरबान बंद पाया मेरा सतगुर पूरै होई सरब कल्याण जियो पाए पिंड जिन साजिया दिता पैनन खान अपने दास की आप पैज राखी नानक सद कुर्बान डंडौत बंधन अनक बार सर्व कला समरथ डोलन तेरा खो प्रभु नानक दे कर हथ डोलन तेरा खो प्रभु नानक दे कर हथ वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह. So just a quick recap from last time. You guys, I should be saying close your notebooks and then, let me know. But first question, what are the three types of Mangals? By name. And then by definition. First one is Vastu Nirdesh Mangal. ठीक है? And what does that mean? When you're explaining or praising. ठीक है? The second type, Namaskar Mangal. Namaskar Mangal, which means? Yeah, so you're submitting to akalpurkh, salutation. And third is Ashirvad Mangal, when you're asking for something. Benti Roop. So this, what was the line that includes all three? Which is Pangati of Guru Arjan Dev Ji? That we said, we just read. Dandot Bandhan, Anek Bar. So that is the Namaskar Mangal, Dandot Bandhan Anek Bar, Sarvakala Samarat. When you're saying Sarvakala Samarat, you're explaining that, oh Maharaj, you are like this, you're beyond. And that for that reason, that's a Vastu Nirdesh Mangal. And then the third one is called the Ashirvad Mangal. Then you're saying, Dolan te rakho Prabhu Nanak de kar hath. So you're asking Maharaj to place your hands. Mere man dolan to aap ji rokyo, kripa karyo. And that's why it becomes Ashirvad Mangal. So we went through that. Okay, what else? I'm going to ask you, what were we said that these are the 10 signs of a good student. What were they? Okay. So they're Khema, Ahimsa, Daya, Mrid, Sat, Bachan, Tap, and Dan. So these are the 10 lachans of a Tarmi person, somebody who's Tarmi. So we're gonna be quickly just going through these bit by bit, because we spent more time on all of these last times. Okay. Aside from that, I want you guys to tell me the 3 types of sarees we spoke about. 3 types of sarees. Okay, 3 types of sarees. First one was asthul sareer. ठीक है? What was the second one? Suksham sareer. And third was karan sareer. Okay. While you're trying to learn or trying to take vidya, what are the 3 things you want to avoid or not have your mind indulged in? There were mathan, san, ahar. So these 3 words you need to keep in mind as well. So mathan is a lustful desire inside of your mind. Any lust. Okay? You guys understand what I'm saying? San meaning sleeping. Ahar meaning food. Okay? So you're not indulging your mind inside of that, because Gurbani is saying the same thing. Baba hor khana khusi khwar jit khadda tan pidiya man mein chale vikar. If you want to take an example from Dasambani, Maharaj is saying pant pachat pakwana upachad rog dehe tinanana. He's saying pant kar pachat pakwana, meaning different types. Pant means varieties. Many different types of food, delicacies, and different taste buds, sour, sweet, salty. We go after these, but what they do in the end for us is upjad rog dehitinanana, that what they're doing inside of your body is just creating more and more diseases. So you don't want to be indulging in that, into that. In your mind, that the mission of your life is just becomes that. Understood? Okay. So then, we spoke about that, but just moving forward, I want you to understand two topics, 2 main things right now. This is called sam and dam. So when you start studying into any vidya granths or anything, these words will come up very often. They'll say sam, dam, adik. So sam and dam. So these are new words I'm telling you guys. I suggest you write these down. Sam meaning when you're controlling your mind from the panch vikar, from vishay vikar. Vishay vikar meaning the vices, meaning काम, क्रोध, लोभ, मोह, अहंकार. ठीक है? So sam meaning keeping your mind not from going towards any of those vikars. Dam is controlling your physical body parts to go towards the panch vikar. Does that make sense? So what were the first 2 types of sarees we spoke about? First one was asthul. Right, so you should have this memorized by now. Asthul meaning the physical, visible. Suksham is the non-visible or the non-physical. So now sam and dam are speaking about both. So sam is speaking about the suksham, about the mind. Dam is speaking about the actual physical body. So your mind can go towards kam, and your eyes can go towards kam as well. Your hands can go towards kam, lust. Right? Your hands can go towards anger, and so can your mind. 2 different things. When you say sam and dam, it means you're stopping your mind and your physical body going towards the panch vikar. So sam, dam, adik. Adik meaning and other sorts of things like this. It means etc. Adik. When they say ad vikar, it means all the vikars and etc. Or when you hear the words kamadik, it'll mean kam, all the kamnavas, as in the panch vikar, the vices, etc. Right? Because remember we didn't speak about this yet. Each of the panch vikars, they actually expand into 4 more vikars. So there's actually 25 vikars in total. So there's 5 main, right? But then when we speak about irkha, right, or we speak about dvash, irkha meaning jealousy, right? It's not out of the main panch vikar, but it is a branch of the other one. We're not going to speak about that yet, but I just want you guys to keep this in mind. So when we say adik, kam adik, or ad vikar, it's that word in itself just means etc. We're continuing on. Okay, but before we get into that, I want you guys to focus on the very first shabad of Sri Rag. So this is outside of the first 13 angs of Guru Granth Sahib Ji. This shabad is the first shabad in Sri Rag. So where the rags begin, This is the very first Shabad. And we're going to read it out. You guys, I suggest you guys can even pull it out on your phones now if you guys have your phones available. Right? The Shabad is Moti ta mandar usra ratni ta hoye jadao kastur kungu agar chandan leap ave chao mat dekh pula visra tera chitna ave now. Har bin jio bal jal jao jal bal jao. Pulled it out? Okay. So this first line, Moti ta mandar usra ratni ta hoye jadao. We're going to go through word for word for this, just so we help understand our minds on how to understand padarth. So what were the meaning of padarth? Padarth cheta kiya? Padarth means word for word, literal word for word. And Triv arth would mean on the inside, and Pav arth would meaning metaphorical arth, metaphorical meaning. So Moti ta mandar usra ratni ta hoye jadao. In this Shabad, Maharaj is speaking to four different things that the world desires. But Maharaj is saying inside of this, before even stepping into the second Shabad of Guru Granth Sahib Ji, in the first Shabad in the first Shabad of the Rags, Maharaj is straight up saying you have to let go of this. This is how important it is, or you can't even continue on. Because normally when you start a book or a Granth or anything, any study, you would start from the beginning to the end. Obviously Guru Granth Sahib Ji is not trapped or inside of that bandhan. Theek hai? Any bit of Gurbani is speaking to everybody. But just for the sake of this example, let's just look at the very first Shabad, then we can go on to the second Shabad. Obviously, we're not going to do Ladiwar Guru Granth Sahib Ji Katha here, but just to take an example of this. And let's speak about the Bantar of a Shabad as well. Maybe that might help us when we try to understand Guru Granth Sahib Ji. So, Rahao Wali Pankti, I'm sure majority of you know this already. The Pankti where it says Rahao in a Shabad, where there is a Rahao, not every Shabad in Guru Granth Sahib Ji will have a Rahao. Some will be Paudis, some will be Shants. They're different poetic structures. But in this, for example, this Shabad, there's a line with a Rahao Pankti. If you notice that Rahao Pankti, it'll have a 1 before it. Right? Everybody see that? It has a 1 before it because that is the first Rahao Pankti in the first Rahao line inside of the entire Shabad. But now I want you guys to scroll up to the very first line, where it says Moti ta mandar usra. So it's made up of 3 lines. After the third line, it'll say the number 1. Then it'll say Rahao Pankti, but it'll say number 1 again. Then it'll say the next 3 lines. The next 3 lines, meaning they're together. It'll say the number 2. After that, it'll say the number 3 and then the number 4. Everybody see that? At the end of number 4, what does it say right after that? It says number 1 again. Okay? So you might notice this at the end of a rag. At the end of Shri Rag, for example, it'll be like 4, 24, 11, 12, 15, 36. And it'll just be numbers, a full line of numbers. You might see that, you'll be confused. What do these numbers mean? But you won't actually read them. But they're there to help you. Even though we're not going to get into that right now, I'm just going to share this with you to help you understand how this Shabad works. Right? Obviously this Shanda Bandi di ਜਾਂ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਦੀ ਬੰਤਰ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਵੀ ਆਖਿਆ ਹੈ ਕਾਫੀ ਲੰਬੀ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ. We're not going to get too much into it right now. But just for the sake of this, Rahao Pankti, for example, it's like the main line or the heading or the chorus of a song, for an example. So that's why when you see Ragi singers or classical Ragis, they'll use the Rahao Ali Pankti as the main line, then they'll go to the first line, then they'll come back to the main line. Then they'll go to the second line, come back to the main line. Third line, back to the main line. Fourth line, back to the main line. And then the Shabad ends. You'll notice that. Because that is the main line. That's the point that Maharaj is trying to prove. So before we begin understanding the Shabad, let's read that Rahao Wali Pankti sing. Har bin jio jal bal jao, main apna gur pooch dekhya avar nahi thao. He's saying, other than my beloved, har bin, other than akalpurkh, jio bal jal jao, my soul is burning. There's no purpose of my soul. I can't find peace anywhere else. I've asked my Guru, मैं अपना गुरपूठ देखया overnight था, that there is no other place for me in this entire world. This is speaking to not only the physical world, but even the non-physical world. We spoke about Suksham and Asthul. So now when we take these concepts, you can understand what Guru Bani is actually trying to say. But this is, remember, this is just intro. I tell you this again, this is just intro. So now, this is what Guru Sahib is saying, that other than my beloved akalpurkh, other than Hari, everything else is not going to give me this peace. The world is trying to attain this peace. When we say that akalpurkh, I'm going to pause this here and I'm going to give you another, throw another concept at you. I want you to write this down. Right? What is akalpurkh? What form is akalpurkh in? So that could be your heading. What form is akalpurkh in? What is the form of God? It's described in 3 words. Sat, Chit, Anand. So akalpurkh is Sat, Chit, Anand, Sroop. The Sroop, the form of akalpurkh, Sat meaning truth. It is true. We have no words. Even the words that we will say are not true. But akalpurkh is even beyond those words. He is Sat. Chit meaning he is Chetan Sroop. Meaning he is alive. Meaning he's everywhere. He's aware and he's alert. It's not that you can't say it's just everything is just one. Because not akalpurkh is alert and awake. Chetan Srupya. He knows everything. He's all knowing, all pervading. And Ananda Srup. He's the embodiment of Anand. He's bliss. So now we're chasing Anand, we're chasing Sukh, which is the embodiment of this Brahm, where we said Brahm Pekhiya, Brahm Suniya, Ek Vakhaniya. When you look, Brahm Pekhiya, jidhar bhi dekho, udhar bhi Brahmya, Brahm Suniya, udhar bhi Brahmya, Brahm meaning akalpurkh. Ek Vakhaniya. And whenever you describe anything that you can talk about, all you can describe is just him because O Sat Chit Ananda Srupya. Okay, so these 3 words you have to keep in mind because later on we're going to get into the depths of these things. But for the purpose of this, keep those in mind and let's focus back on this first shabbat that Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj is saying. Guru Nanak Dev Ji is saying that here, the har bin jio jal balja, my heart, my soul, my jio is burning. And I've asked my Guru, so in the previous days we spoke about what the Guru is, the value of a Guru, how you take on this Vidya. So now Maharaj is saying, I've asked my Guru, मैं Guru nu poch ke dekh liya that in this world there's nothing other than akalpurkh. And what do they describe? What is there then? So then they describe what are the 4 main things that people base their entire life. They die for these things. And then we'll get to what Maharaj is actually trying to say here. So let's go to the first line. Maharaj here, they're saying, Moti ta mandar usre, ratni ta hoye jadao. So if there is a mandar, Moti ta mandar usre, ratni ta hoye jadao, we'll just go into very sankhep arth, brief arths, is if I have a palace, the ode vich heere, moti, diamonds, jewels, they're embedded into that beautiful, massive mansion palace. As the most wondrous thing that eyes could ever behold. Meaning chasing wealth, chasing houses, chasing pride, any of that. Then they say further, Kastur kungu agar chandan leap ave jao, that with all the smells you can ever think, that the most beautiful, clean smells. And even just by smelling or looking at that, your heart goes, wow. Leap ave jao, andaron cha honda ya. Wow, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my world, in my life. Where Maharaj, they go in Bani, they also akhi dekhna rajiyan bahur rang tamase. So you're looking at this beautiful thing and you think there's nothing beyond this. But then Maharaj, they say, Mat dekh pula visre tera chitna ave now. But what can happen to my mind? is if I look at this, oh Sache Pacha, I can still forget you. This is beautiful. There's no doubt about that. But there's a problem here, because by getting my mind too much into this and not actually what's behind it, then that in itself, main thonu bhul sakda. That is the reason, because I have forgotten you, that is why my soul is in pain. ठीक है? So because of this separation, even look at, this is in Rag, Siri Rag. Siri Rag. If you look at the very first Rag in Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj, and you look at the very last Rag, Rag Jai Jaivanti, the Rags, they all have different meanings as well. They all express different emotion, different loves, different feelings. Some might be happiness, bilaval or kalyan, right? Some might be shanti, some might be something else. But Shri Rag is the Rag of separation, where it's the inner cry. Obviously there's much deeper meanings, but let's just take this meaning for now. Where the inner cry, the pain of separation. And this is where Maharaj is starting off their Bani. If Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj is Brahm Gyan, the very first thing Maharaj is saying here is understand that you are separated. If you haven't even understood your separation yet, then you can't even further move this. What was the thing we spoke about last week? In order to learn Vidya, you must first become a Jigyasu. You must have that inner thirst. Thirst meaning where you're able to die and give up anything for it. Not just, it's kind of interesting, or you had a little bit of your emotion riled up and you felt, that was so good. Those are good ways. This is why Maharaj, they say, Sun Sakhi man jap pyar. You learn Sakhiyan, you learn the Sikhya, and andaron pyar paragat hunda. You get inspired off of this. You use that inspiration, and this is what Maharaj, the first Shabbat of Gurbani is saying this. The eight chijanu shad, these four things. Beautiful looks, beautiful palaces, wealth, beautiful smells, where your heart is desiring something in this world. Eh sara shaddana pena. And we'll speak about this in more detail. Then let's go to the second pada. So after the Rahau Pangati, what is it saying? They're saying, Tarti ta hire lal jarti, palang lal jadao. In that palace, if the floor has emeralds, is jewels, everything. Palang lal jadao. And the throne that I sit on, that is made out of diamonds and emeralds and jewels as well. Mohani mukh mani so hai, kare rang pasao. And even with that, if there's beautiful maids, beautiful queens, beautiful wives, people serving me, everybody is around there, and there's so much love. Everyone is giving me love. Mere naal pyar vi karde hai sari. As in, like I don't feel lonely. It's not that I'm feeling lonely in the world. People are always there for me. I have lots of friends. I might have the most beautiful wife, or an example, a most beautiful husband. But even in spite all of that, Maharaj is saying that mat dekh pula vistere tera chitna ave. Now the same line comes again. So Maharaj is proving a point to us here. Despite all of that, some people chase after big palaces and the wealth and beautiful smells. That you can forget akalpurkh. Onu we should do. Second thing Maharaj is saying, beautiful colors of love. You sitting on a throne. People serving you. You having a say in the world. People following you. Even then Maharaj is saying, forget that as well. So these are things people want. What are all these things? These are all physical things, right? So I want you to connect this back to asthul. I keep those three things in mind. Asthul, suksham, and karan. So now let's go to the third one. Maharaj saying, Siddh homa, siddh lai, rid akha ao. If you gain spiritual powers, tapavi kar liya, you get riddhiyan siddhiyan now. And your mind, you have this knowledge, you have gyan. You call yourself a holy person. People in the world call you a religious person. Right? People might make you the biggest religious person in the world. And then Maharaj is saying, Gopata pargat hoye baisa lok rakhe pao. Then they're saying that you can have such powers, you can make yourself gupat or pargat. As in, you can make yourself invisible or visible at your own will. Meaning you have such powers, that things that people call magical. People say, this is a miracle, you must be God. People say this. You've won people over. Whether you can walk on certain surfaces, whether you can go and you can create miracles, bring things back to life, or you can show magic to certain people. If we read Guru Da Ityas, Maharaj has condemned all of this kind of stuff as well. So this is how you build your thing and understand Sakhiya as well. By taking Gurbani as the main asra, the main supporting mechanism. So here, Gopat Pargat hoy baisa lok rakhe pao, mat dekh pula visara tera chitna ave. Now Maharaj is saying, even if you become the most holy, the most spiritual, you gain all these experiences of spirituality even. But if I get lost on that, then despite that, even then if I've still forgotten you, then my soul is still crying out in pain. Because I still haven't found you. So somebody might be chasing after experiences of spirituality. But even that Maharaj is saying, no, that's not what you're actually chasing for. That's not what akalpurkh, that's not what the Sat Chit Anand Roop of akalpurkh paramatma is. That is still something suksham. So, then an example to help further explain this, is if somebody is traveling from here, you're sitting here in Calgary, let's say you're traveling towards Amritsar, right? You're traveling towards Amritsar, and you hear about this, Ditthe sabbe thav nahi to djeheya, baddo purkh badate tatu soheya. I've heard of this place. There's no other place like this in the world. And you're traveling towards this with this desire in your heart. Along the way, there comes a city. That city might be called Jalandhar, right? And Jalandhar, you see that there's people, there's business, and people are living there, and life is busy. And you get there, you're like, you know what? I'm so close. I even made it to India. I'm so close, but what's the point of going to Amritsar? Because this city is looking so beautiful. Or I get to Chandigarh, right? And there's like, this is the capital. The roads here are nice. This is such a beautiful place. You might as well just settle in there. But you've not actually even seen what Amritsar is. That's just an analogy. You've never actually made it, but you got taken off track along the way. Like something else caught you in the way. That in itself, Maharaj is saying, this in itself, mat dekh pula visara tera chitna ava. Now that in itself is saying, har bin jio jal bal jao. My heart is still crying out in pain because of that. Even if you attain all of that. People that had all of these things, had all of this, had the biggest gyan, are saying to Guru Nanak Dev Ji, Siddh Akhan, Siddh Bolan, Shubh Bachan, Tan Nanak Teri Vaddi Kamai. They, oh Sache Pacha Guru Nanak Dev Ji, these words when you came to these mountains in the Bani Siddh Ghost, you came to us, you said these concepts, we had no idea what you were talking about. We're the most religious, most spiritual people in this entire world. We've beaten people in debates of knowledge. We've beaten people in magical powers. People bow down to us. People give everything. We can read everybody's minds. But you've said some things that have just gone completely over our head. This is why they say Siddh Bolan, Shubh Bachan, that Tan Nanak Teri Vaddi Kamai. So let's understand what Guru Nanak, what Sache Paramatma, Sache Pacha Akalpurkh actually is. Even this Maharaj is saying, Evi nahi, hallevi, your heart is still crying out in pain. Then let's go to the fourth part. Maharaj here, Sultan Hova Mel Laskar. You can become a sultan, you can become a king. You can become rich, you can become a king of the world. You can have many armies. Takht rakha pao. Many kingdoms you can have. Hukum hasal kari baitha nanak ka sab vao. That you have people at your own command that are paying you taxes. You don't have to do anything. People give you things. But despite all of this, you've taken over the entire world. Aam karke we say that I want to take over the world. Even if you take over the world, Maharaj is saying, even despite that, mat dekh pula visare tera jitna ave now. So these four things Maharaj spoke about. They spoke about first, beautiful palaces, things that are enticing to the eye and to the senses, even the smell. Then they speak about me, my heart, my emotions, feeling, people giving me love, people speaking to me, having beautiful wives, having all of these beautiful things that I want, my own comforts. Then Maharaj speaks about the magical powers, the knowledge of the mind. Even you become the smartest person in the world, you attain all of these things, then no. And even if you become the king of the world and you control all the armies and you've taken over all the lands across this world, even then your mind is still, what? It's crying out in pain. Your heart is still crying out in pain. You haven't found that what that true Sat, Chit, Anand, Srup, Paramatma is. मैं अपना गुर पूछ देखा अवर नहीं था. I've asked my guru because my guru has actually given me. This is going to connect back to what the value of a guru is. Only a guru can actually give you that. Gu and Ru, these are two Sanskrit words. Sanskrit te shabada. Right? I'm sure you've heard this. This is commonly, we speak about this all the time. Gu means darkness. ठीक है, अंधेरा, अंधकार. And we'll speak about andhakar in just a second as well. Ru, this is a Sanskrit word for the ray of sun, the ray of the sun. Roshni jinu keh dinde, which you're speaking about light. So andhakar, when the sun comes up, it shoots light, the andhera or the agyan is dispelled. That's what the meaning of a guru is. It is the light in itself. So all of these four things, what are they all connecting to? This is connecting to this physical world. So in despite of all of these things, when somebody comes to you and they say, your body is funny like this, or they say, your question, why do you have a turban? Or they make fun of you based on looks, based on the physical body. But if you take your consciousness and you make your realization past the physical body or the physical world, then even the mitti and the sonna, they look the same. Meaning the dirt and the gold, they look the exact same. There's absolutely no difference between them. There's a small story. Normally I wasn't going to share stories in this series, but it just happens to be, it just comes across my mind. There's Bhagat Kabir ji and his wife. They're walking together one day. Bhagat Kabir ji, they're walking down the road and they're having this conversation of Brahmagyan with each other. They're saying, akalpurkh is like this, paramatma is like this, God is like this. This is how we experience it. They're talking about the shabbat, they're talking about the naam of akalpurkh. As they're having this conversation, Bhagat Kabir ji, he sees along this path, there's a gold coin. And when they see there's this gold coin that's shining with the sun that's shining upon it, what they start doing, they start thinking in their mind that my wife, I don't want her to be enticed by this gold. I want to keep her protected. I want us to continue this conversation. Intention is good. So what he does, he starts, as they're walking, they get close, Bhagat Kabir ji starts kicking dirt and he covers up that gold coin with dirt. When he covers up that dirt, the wife, obviously being, grasti sige, their wife turns around, it's like, like torki chadinal tor, like walk properly. Don't you know how to walk? Just like a wife would say to the husband, right? And Bhagat Kabir ji says, oh sorry, don't worry about it. So when they continue past that, Bhagat Kabir ji then tells Bhagat Kabir ji's wife what he was doing. He's saying along the way, there was a gold coin. There was a gold coin, and what I was trying to do is I kicked the dirt to cover it so it wouldn't entice our mind, so we can continue meditating on akalpurkh while we're walking down this road, so it wouldn't entice our minds. Our minds wouldn't get distracted by this physical beauty. But then Bhagat Kabir ji's wife, as they're walking, they turn around, they're like, Acha, bas ithe tak ki tu halle. Like that's it, that's all you realize so far? Like you actually saw the gold coin. So I didn't even see the gold coin. I was looking farther ahead than you were. I didn't even see, because that gold coin that was there, for me, it was a coin of dirt. It was a coin of copper for me. It didn't even mean anything to me. Talking about the realization. Jo nar dukh mein dukh nahi manna, sukh sne arpa nahi jaake, kanchan mati manna. Kanchan means gold, mati means dirt. They both look the same to that person, that realization. So any words that you hear, positive or negative, it doesn't affect that person. Hot or cold doesn't affect that person. Pain or pleasure doesn't affect that person. Because what are all these? Physical. These all come into what? Asthul. So you're getting your consciousness away from the actual physical. If you stick to the physical, then you won't succeed. Why? Because you're placing your hopes in something that is nashvant. Nashvant meaning it's going to be destroyed. Here's a Gurbani Pankti for you. Dunya mukamme fani. I want you to do the arth of that. Dunya. What does dunya mean? World. Sansar. Mukamme means this mukam, the destination. Fani means, doesn't mean funny. I don't know, that's what you're thinking. It is a funny world. But fani means, it's another Sanskrit shabad that means fana ho jana, meaning destroyed. Dunya maqam mein fani tahqiq dil dani. Know this inside your heart that this is the absolute truth. Dunya maqam mein fani tahqiq dil dani. Everything that you see in this world, ek din nash hoegi. It's going to be destroyed one day for sure. But there's only one thing that is sat. I'm going to come back to those three. What is the form of akalpurkh? Sat, Chit, Anand. It is Sat, is Chetan Sroop, it is alert, is aware, and Sat, Chit, Anand, it is the Sroop of Anand. It is the embodiment of that bliss. ठीक है? So now speaking about this, that physical is not affecting them in any way. Kanchan mati man hai. So Bhakt Kabir ji is explaining to us in their Bani to actually take your consciousness away from the physical and go inwards. So you have to go, there's two words, I want you to remember these as well. Behkaran and Antahkaran. Remember all of these things you have to have memorized. Like memorized as in like, you know, even if in the most difficult situation, if I ask you and you're crying or something and you're working out and I ask you, what is the form of akalpurkh? You better be working out. Sat Chit Anand Sroop. You better say it like that. Okay, the first word is behkaran. And the second word is antahkaran. Behkaran means looking outwardly. Behkaran, barla. Outside. Antahkaran means inside. ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਅੰਦਰ ਨੂੰ ਵੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਆ. The very first thing that you have to do is understand that you are separated. This is the whole point of Maharaj saying this in the very first Shabad. So Maharaj has just condemned what the entire world is going after for peace and sukh in the first Shabad. Right? And how there's like thousands of Shabads in Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj. The first Shabad Maharaj says that. Because in spite of these, if you chase these, you will forget akalpurkh. But you will still live amongst these. But looking at this, just looking at this and chasing this, your heart is not there. Main apna gur pooch dekhe, main guru nu puch liya, my guru has told me this. My guru is that light. But now let's look at where this thing comes from. Understanding the concept is easy. But I want you to understand, where does our mind go off of this? We'll speak about the suksham a bit later. Suksham, like I told you last time, is made up of 17 different tats, 17 different things. But what is a doubt? Once doubt comes in your mind, a doubt is duality. A doubt is going from 1 to 2. Bibek, the arth of Bibek is this. Bib means 2, ek means 1. Going from 2 to 1. Everybody got that? So what a doubt or dwash or duality or dumani is, you are that one, but your mind has scattered into 2 and is scattering even further. It's just scattering farther and farther apart. You're not able to bring it together. But a doubt, let's take it from first the practical stance. Then we'll speak about what Maya in a doubt sense is. And how the creation of this world comes in a very brief form. But first, I want you to imagine you're walking down an alley. Okay? Everybody imagining this? You're walking down an alley and it's evening time. So the sun is not fully up and the sun is not fully down. Hale pura uppar vi nahi hoya, pura thalle nahi vi nahi aaya. Param kiya. This is param. Definition of param, according to Rishis, Munis, Sadhus, Mahapurukhs and Guru Granth Sahib Ji Sache Paatshah. What is a param? You're walking down this path and it's not night and it's not day. There's just a little bit of light. You can still see the path, but you can't fully see. It's not clear. There's not clarity, but you can still see it. So it's not agyan, meaning it's not andhera, meaning you're not completely blind. And it's not full gyan either. So the Guru's gyan, the Brahm gyan isn't there yet, so you can fully see everything. But you're in between. You have a little bit of gyan, but there's still a little bit of darkness. So you've learned a little bit, but you're not the full thing. You haven't grasped onto the full thing. So there's still a little bit of andhera. You're walking down this path, and you see something that's laying there along this path. It's a little wavy form. What is that? You start thinking in your mind. You see this wavy, squiggly form that's in the path along the way. The first thing that might come to your mind is, oh man, there's a snake there. Because fear. Fear has come into your mind because there's a doubt. But you're not fully sure it's a snake. You're walking down this path, you see something there, you're confused. A doubt has come into your mind. Because it's not fully clear. You are unsure whether you should continue down the path or whether you should stop and turn back. Now this fear has come into your way. As soon as fear has come into your way, then you will start walking off the path. Because then you become uncertain of things. So you're walking this path of Dharam, you're walking the path of spirituality, walking towards akalpurkh. And the andhera is not because of, it's there. The doubt isn't there, the doubt is created by the mind. With the mind, because the andhera is only inside of the mind. Everywhere else is Sat Chit Anand Swarup. Everywhere else is akalpurkh paramatma. So when you're walking down this path, you see this, you're unsure. But if it was complete darkness, you wouldn't have known, you would just continue past it. And if it was a snake, it would have bitten you. And if it wasn't, then you wouldn't have known. But if it was complete sunlight, now that you see, it wasn't actually a snake, it was just a rope along the path. When you see it's a rope, you have gyan, all fear is dispelled as well. So to get rid of fear, you have to get gyan. Gyan is attained from the Guru. And only when you get gyan, only then is all param gone, all doubt gone, and only then is all darkness inside of your mind gone as well. And when there's no darkness left, then there's only left Sat Chit Anand Swarup Paramatma. What is the difference between Atma and Paramatma now? Let's think about that. Everybody's writing this down now. So Atma is a question that we commonly have within our mind. My soul is something that we might translate to. I did do a talk about this in I think one of the camps. But we're expanding on this just slightly now. Atma, you might translate to a soul. So if you imagine me, if I am standing here and if I die right now, right? If I die, you guys might see my body fall to the ground, right? In a movie setting, I'm just sharing this example because this is what we're used to seeing. Maybe Casper the ghost or another ghost in a movie. You see the body fall, but the ghost is standing there and it's see-through, it's transparent, and it's completely white. And it's standing there and it's looking at the body and it's seeing everybody. But you guys, everybody else can't see the ghost, it's only seeing the body. And you might call that the what? The soul. You guys might call it the soul is separated from the body. That's what you might think. But I want to ask you this. Is that soul Sat Chit Anand Swarup? That soul can't be Sat. It's not true. Because why? That ghost that's standing there, what? It still looks exactly like that body. It still is thinking like that body. It's still holding on to thoughts. That would be the Suksham Swarup. That wouldn't actually be the Atma, what you would call the Atma. Atma is the Paramatma. The soul is the supreme soul. There's no difference. The only difference is the agyan or the avidya. And what is that avidya? Which we call the karan sareer. So these three sareers, they're actually mixed in and intertwined with each other. Everybody grasping this? This is why I was saying that in the first day we're going to take it step by step on dharm. And by this, something I might just randomly say something which you might not be able to grasp right away. Right? We started off with what is dharmi, the 10 signs of a dharmi person. We got into vidya. So now we're just slightly diving into a little bit. But your soul, what you actually are, is akalpurkh. Right? Man, tu jot sroop hai, apna mool pachan. You read this in Bani, right? So the light inside of you are akalpurkh. But you aren't akalpurkh. So what you call yourself, as in me, the me is not akalpurkh. Your thoughts, your looks, your experiences, your life is not akalpurkh. Your life is a gyan. Your life is a separation. So your life is a separation. You are a separation, but you are a separated piece of akalpurkh. You are akalpurkh, the only separation. You're not physically separated. Physically there is no separation. Because itte, utte, kat, tu hi mohina. Here and there is just you. It's not just there, it's here and there. You are in each and every cell, every being. But what is the separation? The separation is of the agyan, of the avidya, which is the karan sari, that karan, the cause of you even being separated is that. But let's see how this came to be. Let's go back, let's jump all the way back to when akalpurkh was just Brahm Swarup, just paramatma Swarup, just Sat Chit Anand. So when we say Ad Sach, what is next? Jugad Sach, Happy Sach, Nanak Hosi Pi Sach. So what did we just go through there? We went through tenses of time, right? Past, now, present, future. We went through these tenses. And in that, you are truth. You are sat still. So obviously, we understand this bodies are not going to stay forever. Right? Everything that comes, everything is going to go. Right? We read this in Bani. Right? Pavane mein pavan samaya, jyoti mein jyot ral jaya, mati mati hoi ek, rovan har ke badai take. Kaun mua re kaun mua, Brahm Gyani mil karo bichara. Understand this, O Brahm Gyanis. Brahm Gyanis get together and have this discussion with each other. Who is actually passed away? Nobody actually passed away. Kaun mua? Nobody. Who's gone away? Nobody actually leaves or goes. The only thing that is dispelled is agyan, and the only thing that's brought in is the light. But that light and darkness, while it's happening in front of us, that causes us an illusion, and we get separated behind that, because of that. So if we take that, even we read in Bani, Baba bolte the, kahan gaye? That you, Baba, is speaking to a body. You were speaking, but now you are gone. And you is dehi, this dehi of yours, this body, this physical body of yours, you're connected with this. But once you are outside of this body, once you don't have control over this body, then what is there? We read in Bhagt Kabir Ji Kabir, Jo hum jant bajavate, toot gayi sab taar, jant bajara kya kare, challe bajavan har. So this body is like a tanti saj, a dilruba, for example. To play love, to play that rag, to sing those experiences, those strings represent our swas, each and every breath of ours. Dam dam sada samalta, every breath of ours. And what do we do with that breath? We sing, but you ask a ragi sing. How long does it take to learn how to play that tanti saj? You have to play for hours. You have to spend years learning, a lifetime learning. You have to do abhyas. You have to practice. You're practicing over and over and over. And then eventually you learn the sargams, the sare gama re, or different surs. And then you learn the rags, then you learn the shabads, then you practice, then you learn the saj. And you start playing this. Jo hum janta bajavate, toot gayi sabtar, but one day all of those breaths are going to break away as well. So those breaths break away. They're all broken away. Janta bichara kya? What can the body in itself, what can the instrument do when all the strings are broken? It's useless then. for an instrument to be made and to get the rag going on, it takes a long time. But for that body or for that rag to break, one string breaks, it snaps, the entire tanti saj is gone. The wood breaks, the entire instrument is gone. Jant bijara kya kare, challe bijavan har. And if there's nobody to play it, then what use is it if there's nobody playing it? Because the player is actually somebody else. The player is you, but it's not you. So you is playing you, if that makes sense. Matti ka putra kaise nachat hai. So it's like mitti da panda, it's a clay pot, it's a clay puppet that's dancing. And the master is pulling the strings of that puppet and it's making it dance. But now, don't get confused by this. We have to understand where all of this comes into play. How do we take ourselves? That is the separation. That is the separation. We are separated because of that. There's agyan there. Right? But as soon as you think that I am akalpurkh, in that sense, like mahiya, it's very easy for you to switch into ankar with that. So that's the beauty. That's the kanyotiki valo niki. That's very, very difficult to walk this path because you are trying to jump on the last bit of stairs without putting your foot on the first step of stairs. If you are trying to say that I understand, I am Brahmgyani, I am akalpurkh, without even falling into dharma or even giving your head to your guru and stepping this path, Maharaj just laid out all of this stuff. But it's very easy to say, you know what, I understand what it is. But then we spoke about Gyan and Vigyan, Prokh and Aproksh. For those of you that weren't there, we don't have time to go to that. You can ask if somebody else after. Proksh and Aproksh, Gyan and Vigyan. So here, it's the difference between knowledge and realization. Right? Even the knowledge of realization is not the realization of realization because it's still you having that realization. Because the you still exists there. Anyways, this might get too confusing. But if we take that concept in itself, let's understand, because I think time probably is going to be running out in just a little while for today. But let's take this concept and let's look at when there's complete nothingness. We're just going to jump over this. Normally, is cheez de vich ਜਦੋਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਥਾ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, you take this katha and you can read the entire Bani of Dakhni Oankar and explaining this, right? There's by Gurdas ji goes into further depth and they explain all of this. Many different granths, they go into different depths and they explain all of this, how it came to be. We speak about 5 different elements. How did those 5 different elements come to be what you see today? The 5 different elements, when they got mixed together, that is something called panchikrit. I'm not going to be able to get into too much depth right now into that, but I'm going to give you a little bit of an intro into that so that you can be inspired to say, hey, I want to learn more into this. So therefore, I'm just going to give you, just share a little bit, because it drags on and on. But to help ourselves understand this, when there is complete nothingness, not even darkness, not even light, not even black or white, nothing, just Sat, Chit, Anand, Srup. It wasn't nothingness either, because the truth was still there. Chit and Srup, Paramatma was still there. That meaning that he was still aware and he was still alert. Siga, there was still thinking, but it was complete Anand. Meaning there was no actual thing, but there was still awareness without any khyal, without any thought. Where Anand Srup, there's just peace, beyond peace, nothing but peace. Anand, nothing but that. That is what this is what we say the ocean is. When we say Nanak leen peo gobind se jo pani sahang pani, when we share this analogy all the time, we're a drop of water, we're going to go and merge into the ocean. This is what the ocean is. There is a big separation though. But because this is the ocean, you're living inside of the ocean, but you're separated from the ocean. So now it is that Sat Chit Anand Srup. But now in the midst of that, there was something, that Brahm Srup, that Paramatma, he decided, I'm just going to go quickly through the story, right? Obviously in Barney, and there's hours and hours of katha upon this, but just to help us grasp the idea. Akalpurkh Paramatma had a khyal with their own, because they can do whatever they want. They created a khyal. They thought. And that thought became something. So that khyal in itself, the thought became, it was slightly separated, it became different from what that complete Anand Swarup is. So when there's complete Anand, there out came a thought, meaning a wave. When that wave came out, that became what we call the cause of the birth of the pratibimb. So these two words you have to know. Have to. One is called bimb and one is called pratibimb. What each of these means, bimb is the actual form. As if I'm here and there's a mirror right there, right? I am the real thing, right? And when I look in the mirror, that is not the real thing, right? This is the real thing. That is a reflection of what the actual form is. So my body might be the actual form. When I look in the mirror, or you look in the mirror and you see the reflection of me, the reflection is called the pratibimb. That reflection is Maya. Okay, that reflection is Maya. So akalpurkh is paramatma. Everything is paramatma. But then through the thought, through the reflection, there became so Maya is the mirror. ठीक है, Maya is the mirror. All of our minds, they're a reflection of the mirror. So we're basing ourselves off the mirror rather than the actual thing. The actual thing is there. It is within everything. Akalpurkh ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਥਾਵਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਰਮਿਆ ਹੋਇਆ. He's in each and every cell, being, thought, everything. But we are basing ourselves off of that reflection off of that mirror. ठीक है? When that mirror came to be, then through that, there became the Panch Tat. Obviously, I'm jumping through a whole bunch of things. Okay? This isn't everything. This is just an intro to it. So we read this in Barney as well. I'm just going to give you one example. Eka mai jugd vyai ten chele parmad ek sansari ek amdari ek lai di ban. Right? So obviously it later on goes into a different context, but it's still speaking about how the creation of the world is happening to be there. Because everything is coming from that one. From that one, there came a sound. ठीक है? That sound was that thought creation. Through that sound was created the entire universe, which we should call the physical. So now through that light, right, there was something that was created. Through that, there was the whole universe expanded through these 5 tats. So through the expansion, they were created the 5 tats. I'm jumping through a whole bunch of things here. These 5 elements were there. But now to help us understand how from there could there come to be an earth, a sky, how is there space, and how is there time? Because at that time there still wasn't time at that moment. Because whether this world is there or whether it's not there, akalpurkh is still Sat Chit Anand Swarup. ठीक है? Sat Chit Anand Swarup. But it's always going to be there. But the world is not going to be there. Kai bar pasreo pasara. Many times it came to be and many times it went away. So with that, world expanded. There became the 5 tats that Maharaj created. Meaning the 5 elements, which are earth, fire, air, water, and space. ठीक है? Earth, fire, water, air, and space. These 5 elements. So now within these 5 elements, how can you say how is this body made up of? We're speaking about how the asthul is made up of. ठीक है? We haven't even touched what the suksham is made up of. ठीक है? And what the karan, what paramatma is getting into. We're just speaking about here just the asthul, so you can understand what you are. So you know in a worldly practical sense, don't base your life off of the physical. Move away from the physical, go away from the bhakkan, go antakar to this realization. Right? Through the asra of Bani, through the light of Bani. So now here, there's something called panchikrit, which is known. So what akalpurkh did, they took those 5 elements. This is just one understanding of it. Those 5 elements, if you take the element and you cut it into half, imagine a pie or a cake. You cut it into half. It's cut into half. 50% is kept. Imagine I am earth, right? Somebody else is water. Somebody else is fire. Somebody else is water. There's 5 of us sitting, right? We take half of ourselves and we put it into the middle. We keep 50% of ourselves. Is everybody with me? Right? I keep 50%. 50% is put into the potluck to share. So now, but the 50% that put in, it's cut into 4 different pieces. So I keep 50%. The 50% that they're cut into 4 different pieces, 12.5% each. Now each piece is swapped with one of the other ones. Do you understand what's happening? So I end up with, for example, if I'm earth, I have earth, 50% is earth, 12.5% is water, one other piece is fire, one other piece is air, and one other piece is space. So now I have all 5 elements, but majority of it, 50% is still earth. Do you understand? Everybody following me? So this is called Panchikrit. This is the kala or the beauty of how akalpurkh. Only they can do this, nobody else. We can go on a molecular level. We can study the physical or the asthul side of this world. We can study up to molecules. You can't study past the elements. You can't study into the Sat Chit Anand Sroop. It's impossible. At that point, because the only way to get into that is only with Sat Chit and Anand. But here, this Panchikrit, so 50% is kept earth, the other parts are kept with the other elements. But all of them are still engulfed together. So now how is this physical body created? Each part of this physical body or this entire world contains different parts of different elements. It is impossible to keep water and fire together. Impossible. You can't mix water and fire. You can't mix earth and fire. Yeah, you can mix them in, and you can mix them in a molecular form, and you can kind of mix the substances together. But on an elemental level, you can't completely mix the atoms of it together. It's impossible. You can't mix water and fire together. You can't mix wood and fire together. But akalpurkh has created that. And that is the beauty what your physical body is this. Inside of this body, inside of this world, there are all 5 of the elements mixed in with each other in different ways. So for example, some Mahampurkhs or sadhus, for example, from previous times, they've written this stuff. They're saying that this is how it's put together. The body, so they're using this, their sense of yoga and other things that they're doing, and they're creating this thought, and they're creating this experience of theirs which they're sharing. And they're saying our bones are made, and they're hard, and they're rough. That's why that part is 50% of the earth. That's what's created into our body. Then we look into our meat, we look into our blood. It moves, it's thin, right? Therefore, it is 50% water, but it still contains the other elements, not just water. It's impossible, it can't just be water, because water is water. Right? And then they go into the lungs. Say the lungs, all of the system, the certain cells even in the bloodstream, they are mixed in with the majority of them being with the air. And then there are certain parts within your mind which we might not even consider as tool, but go into a little suksham where it's speaking about the thought. So that's where space is. And it goes further and further into depth of that is. So where your heat, where your stomach is, where you're burning your food, where you're sweating, where you're building the body heat, right there, that's where the fire is residing, 50% of fire. But they're all mixed in with each other. What I'm saying is that the 5 elements are created with akalpurkh's parna, with whatever within their will, unade hukum anusar, is created, and the physical world is created. The physical world is created, and in that physical world, there is created thought, there is created separation, there is created this homme. So what akalpurkh, this is, some writings say this. Akalpurkh created the person, है ना? Banda banaya. Well, from that banda, he was given the capability to connect to Sat, and he was able to connect to akalpurkh and be mukt from this game of life. So what happened in the world? Everybody connected to akalpurkh. Everybody connected. Everybody became a Brahmgyani. Everybody did. But then, because everybody was that, akalpurkh, unada pana, they can do whatever they want. They created these two types of things which we talked about, those dukhs. Maharaj put two things into this person which took him from that state of Brahmgyan, which took him straight into a completely lost and even forgotten akalpurkh. And that was, one is pukh, which is hunger. And the other one is trishna, meaning desire. Hunger and desire took the mind of this person, completely one with akalpurkh, and completely made them completely separated and even forgotten of akalpurkh. So hunger and desire. So in this first shabbat, even if you look at it, these are all talking about different desires or things to feed the stomach. Move away from the hunger and move away from the desire. You still have to have it. Now it's impossible to, because this is the pana. This is what Maharaj is saying, raza de vich chalana. You have to eat, right? But engulfing your mind, which we said, the pangdi pant pachat pakavana upachad rog dehetin nana, or baba hor khana khasui khwar jit khadya tan pidiya man meh chale vikar. Your mind is indulging inside of that, and the mission of your life has become that. Therefore you've forgotten, you've become completely separated. We said this Shabad last time, dukh vichhada, ek dukh pukh, ek dukh saktavar jamadut. Right, and then we spoke about the very cause of all vichhora, all pains, is this. Vichhora is the separation, which we were discussing. Then is pukh. Then is the fear of death. What is fear of death? Maybe I'll just spend a few minutes on this. There are 4 things that are the similarities between a animal and a human. 4 similarities. They both sleep, right? Nindra. They both eat. They both have pukh, hunger, right? They both do pog. Pog meaning they both have sexual relationships with each other, male and female, and they reproduce, right? An animal does that as well. They have that lustful interaction with each other, and a human does that as well. There's no doubt about that. Then there's also fear, which both the animal has, whether it's of a different animal, and a human has that, whether it's of a different human or a different animal, or whatever it is. These 4 things a human has and an animal has. A human can sleep, human can eat, a human can become fearful, and a human can have pog with another human being or anything, right? So these 4 concepts are the similarities. But there's one thing that the human can do that the animal can't do, and that is gain a gyan. It does not have the capability in its mind to comprehend gyan. It can take that gyan and it can completely enlighten itself. For example, there's a deep dark pit, a well, a deep dark pit which somebody is stuck in. And there's complete darkness. Not only can the darkness inside of that well be dispelled, or inside of that pit, but the entire pit can be completely destroyed. Because there are no physical boundaries after that. There is nothing to be stuck inside of. So write down these 4 things. One is nindra, pukh, pog, and peh. Nindra meaning sleep, sona, pukh, hunger, pog, meaning the sexual interaction, and peh, meaning fear. And we'll get into what gyan is actual, like the essence of Gyan itself, how it alleviates, brings that light in, how does it affect your mind and completely dispels that homme or the karan next time. But understand these concepts. Understand that first you have to move away from the physical. If you don't move away from the physical, it's impossible to connect towards your inside. And not only connecting to your inside is just enough, because you are connected to your inside, but Braham Vidhiya is just the self-realization that you are Sat Chit Anand Swarup. You are Atma is Paramatma. Everything is just an illusion. That is the realization of what it's trying to achieve. What is this world made up of? What is Param? What are all of these different things, and what is the journey towards that? These are the things we're going to continue on. Obviously, we just spoke about Sthul. We'll get into more of Suksham next time. Take it tomorrow. Is hopefully everybody still following. Hana? This is still very, very intro stuff. I'm going to say this and repeat this again. To understand this stuff, first you have to grasp the day 1, day 2, day 3. It's set order. Without understanding the previous, it's very hard to understand what we're speaking about today. Without understanding today, it's going to be difficult to understand what's on day 7 and 8. And without understanding this, it's very, when we get into the actual deeper Vidya, this is just an intro course to Braham Vidya. This is a series that me and a few Singhs sitting down, we said, a few ustads have taught, we said we should inspire the youth to actually understand Gurmat and actually get rid of what some of their doubts are, because sometimes they base their entire life after something physical. Because even Dharm in itself is, in essence, not something that is truly physical. It starts off physical, right? From the physical you go into the Suksham, then you connect, completely you dispel all of these doubts, right? But it's taking your mind through that journey, recognizing where you actually are at this moment. So I probably made many mistakes, so please forgive me. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, share and subscribe. Please donate and help spread Guruji's message. Link is in the description below. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.